Hello everyone, my name is Ozimitsu and today I'm bringing you another spin-off episode of my Evolution Solution series. Usually this series involves me discussing a Pokemon with Evolite alongside its evolutionary counterpart. However, I have done a few spin-offs that don't quite fit the bill but made for very interesting discussions. For example, Shaymin with Shaymin Sky and Lightball Pikachu with Raichu. I do have a few more spin-off episodes, so watch this space. If you wanted to watch the first video of this series where I discuss the phenomenon in its entirety, click on the icon on the top right hand corner of the screen. However, I've also included the link to the entire playlist in the description below for your convenience, so please enjoy. But for today's episode, I'm going to be discussing one of the most beautiful Pokemon ever, Ninetales, and the regional variant found in the Alola region. But for the purpose of this video, I'll refer to it as Alolan Ninetales. So let's get started with regular Ninetales. Regular Ninetales evolves from Vulpix when exposed to a Firestone. Ninetales is a pure fire type, meaning it's weak to ground, rock and water, whilst resisting bug, steel, fire, grass, ice and fairy, whilst having no immunities unless it has the flash fire ability, which I'll talk about in a moment. It has some respectable stats, excelling in special attack and speed. Many Ninetales users take advantage of these stats to make Ninetales a very speedy special sweeper. It also has some pretty nice abilities that suit its playstyle really well. One of its abilities are Flash Fire, which essentially grants Ninetales a fire immunity as well as powering up any fire type attack it'll use by 50% if it's hit by a fire type move. It's a pretty handy ability in the sense that you can make a predicting switch in to up your fire type attacks, but it is very situational. Its hidden ability is Drought. Upon switching in, any Pokemon with this ability summons Harsh Sunlight, which lasts for 5 turns, unless the user is holding a Heat Rock, which increases this to 8 turns. Not only this, it does power up fire type moves even further, as well as reducing damage taken from water type moves, which for a fire type like Ninetales is pretty handy. Coupled with its respectable special defense makes Ninetales a force to be reckoned with. Another point to be noted, similarly to why Charizard Y is so good in competitive play, Ninetales benefits from Drought due to getting access to Solar Beam, covering all of its weaknesses, scaring those pesky dual water ground types, as well as enabling it to hit in one turn. You better run because Ninetales shines in kicking some grass and taking names. Now let's hop onto Pokemon Showdown to come up with some sets for this foxy Pokemon. A personal set one of my really good friends use, which always annihilates my poor Roserade. Why? Ozzy, just shut up and tell your viewers what this so-called magical set is! Oh geez, fine. So what he runs is Nasty Plot, Flamethrower for nice consistent damage with good accuracy, and overall a safer choice than Heat Wave or Fire Blast, Extra Sensory, and finally Solar Beam to cover its ground, rock and water weakness as mentioned earlier. I run the Timid nature because it does not need the extra special attack, but a base 100 speed stat means it needs as much speed investment as possible, as well as a nature that would increase it even further, and Timid does that perfectly. In terms of the EVs, run max special attack, max speed and a little bit in HP, give it the Heat Rock to ensure the drought lasts a little bit longer. Another set I thought could fare fairly well God, why do I script such weird words together? Fare fairly well. What a tongue twister. Anyway, another set I thought could fare fairly well is giving Ninetales a Choice Scarf, because a 100 base speed stat means there'll be a lot of speed ties, or just seeing Ninetales getting outsped or even out-prioritized. Run Heat Wave, Solar Beam, Extra Sensory and Dark Pulse. The last two purely for hacks purposes. With the Scarf you'll most likely outspeed and you can hope for some flinch hacks, or the first two to take out any threats and hope for an OHKO. In terms of the EVs, give it max special attack, 228 in speed and 28 in HP, so you may be able to survive a super effective hit. Here you can opt for the modest nature as you have enough speed anyway. Let's move on to Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales evolved from Alolan Vulpix when exposed to an Ice Stone. Alolan Ninetales has the Ice Fairy typing, and may I just say looks absolutely beautiful, an absolute faultless design. I just love it. Personal biases aside, it is a pretty cool Pokemon. Cool, because it's an ice type. Anyway, it being an ice fairy means it is weak to poison, rock, a 4 times weakness to steel and fire. It resists bug, ice and dark, whilst having an immunity to dragon. Already what we can see here is Alolan Ninetales has more weaknesses and fewer resistances, whilst regular Ninetales has no immunities unless it has the Flash Fire ability. Looking at Alolan Ninetales, its stats are quite similar to regular Ninetales, but there are a few differences. It has the same hit point, defense, special attack and special defense stats, but regular Ninetales has a slightly better physical attack stat, whilst Alolan Ninetales has a higher base speed stat. Although they both have the same base totals, the extra bit of speed is totally worth it, seeing as neither variant makes use of its physical attack stat anyway. So far, from an analytic standpoint, Alolan Ninetales has the upper hand in terms of its base stats, whilst regular Ninetales has the upper hand with its typing. Although Alolan Ninetales can get stabbed from 2 types, and Ice being a very good offensive typing, its weaknesses don't really matter because it's not really a mon that is supposed to be on the field for too long anyway. Its speed and offensive stats tell me it's supposed to be a sweeper, take out as much as it can until it faints. A bit like Sizzle, although Sizzle's physical defenses aren't to be sniffed at. Moving on to Alolan Ninetales' abilities. Its first ability, Snow Cloak, raises its evasiveness in hail and is also immune to hail damage. However, in competitive play, the ability is pretty useless as there are so many Pokemon who can fare well and check evasive strategies, which is why no one really does well with Minimize anymore. Anyway, its more useful and hidden ability is Snow Warning, which, similar to regular Ninetales, upon switching in summons Harsh Sunlight, Alolan Ninetales upon switching in summons Hail, which is pretty redundant in most cases but works well for a Mono Ice team. Overall, comparing Ninetales and Alolan Ninetales, they both have some pretty useful abilities, but holistically, I'd say Ninetales got the better end of the deal in terms of a more beneficial ability, as Drought actually allows you to set up a 110 Solar Beam or power up your only stab moves, whereas Hail, although can be nice residual damage on your foe and using Blizzard without worrying about it missing, doesn't have much else going for it, not in my opinion anyway. Speaking of which, let's move on to some potential sets. Before we commence, because it is still early days since we've moved on to Generation 7, Pokemon Showdown hasn't completely updated, so all the moves I assigned will say they are banned, but I have checked some reliable sources that confirm Alolan Ninetales does get access to these moves. If you want, at your own leisure, you may check this source by checking the description below. It is a very versatile Pokemon. The following set I thought would work really well in doubles is assign it 2 of its stab moves, one of its more obvious choices being Blizzard, coupled with its Snow Warning ability, which means Blizzard will never miss. Secondly, Moonblast, a very nice offensive fairy move whilst having a 30% chance to lower your foe's special attack. You can give it Dazzling Gleam, but the only problem is the power is divided and it isn't as good as a doubles move as Blizzard is in my opinion. Blizzard has a base power of 110 whilst Dazzling Gleam only has a base power of 80, and when the damage is calculated you have to admit it isn't too impressive in doubles, especially if you're relying on Ninetales being a sweeper. The third move I'd give is Hidden Power Ground, which covers all of its weaknesses, and finally Protect to scout what your foe will do, or in case of a support Pokemon setting up Trick Room or some gimmickry like that. What I was thinking was go all out, max special attack, max speed with a little bit in HP investment, go modest and pop a Life Orb on that thing and it'll wreak havoc. If you wanted a different set, I saw some pretty cool moves Alolan Ninetales gets access to, one of them being Aurora Veil, not to be confused with Aromatisse's exclusive ability Aroma Veil, which essentially acts as a dual screen for 5 turns. The only difference is it only works whilst in hail. It can prove to be quite handy, especially considering Alolan Ninetales has so many weaknesses, whilst giving it Freeze Dry to also hit water types just for that extra bit of coverage, Dazzling Gleam and Extra Sensory for some flinch hacks. The EV spread for this should be max special attack and speed again, ensure to protect yourself with that Aurora Veil and then bam. It's kind of like Nasty Plot in the sense it buys you some time to take out your foe if it's not an easy OHKO. The major downside to this set is a Clear Smog Wheezing. Darn those pesky poison types. Going back to analysing the two, I feel like Ninetales has the better typing due to having fewer weaknesses and more resistances, although it can be argued that ice types aren't supposed to be defensive anyway, they're supposed to hit hard and leave the field. But its part fairy typing is kind of like a double-edged sword, because the fairy typing is usually specially defensive, whilst ice types are usually offensive and in some cases physically defensive. It's almost like an oxymoron ironically, both its stab moves hit pure dragon type super effectively. As a whole, I'd say Ninetales wins the typing department, although Alolan Ninetales can be a good switch in when predicting a dragon type move. Many popular dragon types like Garchomp and Dragonite do learn steel moves however, like Ironhead, which will completely destroy Alolan Ninetales unfortunately. In terms of its abilities, it's another close call. Ninetales makes use of its Drought and Heat Rock combo really well, getting access to Solar Beam as well as powering up its Fire type moves, whilst Alolan Ninetales' Snow Warning ability summons Hail, which will ensure Blizzard will never miss, complementing its offensive stats. All in all, I'd say the ability war is a draw. They both suit each variant really well and are both useful in their own right. It completely depends on which kind of role you want to play. Do you want a Sun team or a Hail team or neither? In terms of their move pool, both get access to a wide range of moves. Whilst Alolan Ninetales has a wider move pool, I think this boils down to it having a dual typing which gives it that opportunity. However, regular Ninetales still gets access to moves like Dark Pulse, Extra Sensory and Solar Beam for wide coverage, whereas Alolan Ninetales will have to rely on Hidden Power Ground to achieve that, and if you know me, I'm always a bit skeptical about Pokemon relying on Hidden Power insert type here for further coverage, because its base power isn't good and unless you have Technician it isn't all that great, but it's okay as a last resort or a filler slot. All in all, I'd say Ninetales has a better move pool in terms of complementing its role in competitive play. But what do I think taking competitive play out of the question? Whilst regular Ninetales is beautifully designed and it has one of my favourite shinies, I'm a fairy type trainer at heart, and Alolan Ninetales' overall design is so beautiful I can't help but have a biased favouritism towards the Ice Fairy. What about you guys? Which do you prefer? Ninetales? Alolan Ninetales? Let me know by commenting it down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Before you go, I'd really appreciate any feedback on this video. Did you enjoy this video? If so, leave this video a thumbs up and a comment stating what in particular it was that you enjoyed enjoyed. If not, don't be afraid to leave a dislike, and if you can, leave a comment stating why. Any constructive criticism is more than welcome. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a video from me, as I plan on doing more videos like this, so watch this space. In the meantime, be sure to check out previous episodes within the series where I do similar analysis of specific Pokemon who have a close-knit bond. You can do this by clicking on the icon on the top right corner of your screen, but I've also included a handy link in the description below for your convenience. Also, follow me on all my social media platforms, and with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!